Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. जय श्री श्री राधा गदाधर भगवान की जय, जगत गुरु शिला प्रभुपाद की जय, शिला गुरुदेव की जय, पिता गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरे हरि बोल. So, Hare Krishna dear devotees. So, first of all, I want to thank His Grace Amrish Prabhu, Her Grace Punpagya Mataji, and His Grace Krishna Samarpan Krishna Prabhu for uh, training us and actually allowing me to actually share my realizations on this verse, the Nectar of Instruction text 2. So we have actually started this verse last week. So let's start with actually reciting the verse and then we will actually begin our discussion on the purport from where we stopped last time. And I think we will do the verse and translation together. So everyone can do once and then we will actually get into the purport. अत्याहाराः प्रयासश्च प्रजल्पो नियमाग्रहः जनासङ्गश्च लौल्यं च षड्भिर्भक्तिर्विनश्यति. अत्याहाराः प्रयासश्च प्रजल्पो नियमाग्रहः जनासङ्गश्च लौल्यं च षड्भिर्भक्तिर्विनश्यति. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Forward over synonyms, translation purport. Once devotional service is spoiled when he become too entangled in the following 6 activities. 1. Eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than required. 2. Over endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain. Talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters. Number 4, practicing the scriptural rules and regulations only for sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically. Number 5, associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. And 6, being greedy for mundane achievements. Okay, so intermediate class duties first, actually you recite and then actually repeat the translation as well. So don't actually wait for me to actually take your name. You can actually begin. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Amrish Prabhuji, Guna Pragya Mataji, and Krishna Samarpan Krishna Das Prabhuji for giving us this foundation and giving us this platform. Thank you, Shital Prabhuji and Sanjeev Prabhuji, for taking our lectures. Atyaharah prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha jana sangascha lolyam cha shadbhir bhaktir vinashyati. One's devotional service is spoiled when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities. 1. Eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than required. 2. Over endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain. 3. Talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters. 4. Practicing the scriptural rules and regulations only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically. 5. Associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. And 6. Being greedy for mundane achievements. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shital Prabhuji. Thank you, Shital Prabhuji, and thank you, His Grace Amrish Prabhuji, His Grace Purna Padma Mataji, and His Grace Krishna Samarpan Krishna Prabhuji for training us. Atyahara prayasascha प्रजल्पो नियमाग्रहः जनसङ्गश्च लौल्यं च श्रद्धिर्भक्तिर्विनश्यति. Translation by Shri. One's devotional service is spoiled when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities: eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than required, over endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain, talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters, practicing the scriptural rules and regulations only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically, associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness, and 6, being greedy for mundane achievements.
Thank you, His Grace Amrish Prabhuji, our graceful Nikaja Mataji, His Grace Santan Krishna Prabhuji for giving this platform. Thank you, Sanjeev Prabhuji, thank you, Shital Prabhuji for training us. Atyahara prayashascha prajalpo niyamagraha jana sangascha lolyam cha shadbir bhaktir vinashyati. Translation. One's devotional service is spoiled when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities. First, eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than required. Second, over endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain. Third, talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters. Fourth, practicing the scriptural rules and regulation only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically. Fifth, associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. And sixth, being greedy for mundane achievements. Hare Krishna.
Okay, anyone from the leaders group, if they want to actually recite the verse, they're welcome to do so. Otherwise, we will continue with the purport.
Hare Krishna, Shital Prabhuji. Thank you, Amrish Prabhuji. Thank you, Purnamada Devi Dashi Mataji, and thank you, Krishna Samarpandas. Atyahara prayasascha prajalbo nemagraha janasangascha laulyam cha shabdir bhaktir vinashyati. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. One's devotional service is spoiled when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities: eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than required, or endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain, talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters, practicing the scriptural rules and regulation only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulation of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically. 5. Associating with worldly minded person who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. And 6. Being greedy for mundane achievements.
Okay. So last week, actually, we have begun our discussion on the purport. I think we discussed actually the initial, human life is meant for plain living and high thinking. Then we actually discussed the Bhagavad Gita verse, chapter 9, verse 13, and then we are actually where discuss different kind of isms. So social work or any kind of altruism or humanitarianism and all those things have no spiritual
Prabhuji, Hare
basis.
Krishna, I'm sorry, your voice is a little low for some reason.
Can you hear me now, Prabhuji?
This is better now.
Okay,
Thank you.
probably I have to, okay, talk louder, Prabhuji, so I will do that. Because I'm using the laptop mic, maybe that is the reason. Okay. And we were discussing the threefold miseries of this material world, Adi Devi Klesh, Adi Bhautik Klesh, and Adhyatmik Klesh. And that's where we actually concluded our discussion last week. So here, as we discussed, all living entities within this material world are under the control of Mahamaya, whose business is to subject them to the influence of threefold miseries. And Srila Prabhupada here in the last sentence here give the reference Daiva Bhutatma Hetavaha. So this is actually a reference, Srila Prabhupada used from the Bhagavatam, where he say the conditioned soul subjected to these three miseries by control of external energy suffer various difficulties, right? So we discussed that in detail. So Daiva Bhutatma Hetava here, Srila Prabhupada actually he used the reference. So I just actually read the purport, and it is actually very nice. I thought I should share that as well. So here the actually example of Yudhishthira Maharaj was given in Bhagavatam, as Srila Prabhupada actually he very nicely discussed in his purport that Yudhishthira Maharaj was a trained king. He was actually a devotee, and Srila Prabhupada says that actually when the king, the head of the state, actually when he's following the scriptural actually injunctions, is working according to the Vedic teachings. Just a minute, actually try to bring that reference up. Okay. It is said in translation that because kings having no enemy, the living beings were not at any time disturbed by mental agonies, diseases, or excessive heat and cold. So these are the actually threefold miseries that we're currently discussing. And as it says that actually Yudhishthira Maharaj is also called Ajat Shatru, whose enemies never born. So he never considered anybody his enemies. And he was actually, following all the rules and regulations. And here, specifically, Srila Prabhupada actually mentioned that there is a full cooperation between man and God, man and nature. And this conscious cooperation between man and God, man and nature, as exemplified by Yudhishthira Maharaj, can bring about happiness, peace, prosperity in the world. The attitude of exploiting one another, the custom of the day, will only bring misery, So here, actually, Srila Prabhupada very nicely actually discussed that at that time, Yudhishthira Maharaj was actually ruling the whole world, and there were actually no other countries, there are actually subordinate states, but because he was a pious king, and he's a devotee, everyone under his protection was also happy. So Srila Prabhupada says that unless you are pious, you cannot make anyone happy who's under your shelter. So that is very important. Actually, I was meditating on this point as well, because especially in today's world, actually in Kali Yuga, now, as we can see, the world is actually divided into, many nations, and there is actually this, there is also prime minister or president, they are the actually head of the state, but they are not really pious, as most of them are not actually following the Vedic system or or try to become a God conscious. So actually they cannot, if you actually look into the instruction, or Srila Prabhupada, what he's saying here, that unless they are pious, they are following the Vedic injunctions, they cannot actually make the citizens of that actually state happy or actually satisfied. It is said that in Yudhishthira Maharaj in kingdom, everyone was happy, and they're actually, the citizens were all protected by Lord himself, and they were not actually suffering these actually three miseries, only because the king was very pious, and actually there is a cooperation between the man and God, So this is a very important point, I thought, because when we actually look at all these three miseries, actually Adi Bhautik, Adi Devik or Adhyatmik, everyone is suffering today, especially in today's, when you look at what is happening in today's world, there are many actually calamities like earthquakes or tsunamis, So everyone is actually somehow become the victim, even we are not actually directly affected, the economic actually the system in such a way that actually somehow everyone will be actually affected, especially when this COVID-19, this pandemic happened. So I was thinking, actually on that point as well. So can anyone tell me actually where this actually pandemic actually fit in these three material miseries?
I think Adi Devik, but I guess there were some theories that someone created, so it can be Adi Bhautik also.
Yes, actually, this pandemic was, actually, it affected the entire world, Yes, if you actually look at actually technical aspect, it could be Adi Bhautik because, the root cause was that particular virus, So it's a living entity. But actually, means even people who are not directly infected, they still suffered, in some way. Some people lost the job, there's a financial trouble, there's a mental agonies as well, and there is a vaccination and the actually after effects of the vaccinations, So I think there was a discussion I heard, and I think some devotees say that is Adi Daivik Klesh, that's actually that's why we're suffering. So even Srila Prabhupada says that in today's world, actually means there are many organizations like what is uh, United Nations, sorry. So there actually means there is a kind of a hypocrisy, So they are worried about actually human rights and everything, but actually they do not care about actually other living entities, They actually there are many slaughterhouses around the world, They are openly actually killing animals and they're actually eating the meat and all that. So there is always a reaction. In one of the lectures, Srila Prabhupada says that there's always reaction. That's why actually we suffer this Adi Devik Klesh, So we are actually seeing that. And because of that, actually, even, there are many calamities that we experience, And this actually attitude of actually exploiting actually another living entities, the custom of today, Srila Prabhupada, they will only bring misery. And we actually experience that, every day. So that was actually a reference there. So I just wanted to actually share this actually point because I thought this is very important, actually, if you think practically in how it is applicable in today's world. Okay, let me share the screen and I'll continue our purport. Right. Okay, I need a volunteer to read now. Okay. Let us start with the Devansh Mataji. Right.
Yes, Prabhuji. The main problem confronting the conditioned souls is the repetition of birth, old age, disease, and death. In the material world, one has to work for the maintenance of the body and soul. But how can one perform such work in a way that is favorable for the execution of Krishna consciousness? Everyone requires possessions such as food grains, clothing, money, and other things necessary for the maintenance of the body. But one should not collect more than necessary for his actual basic needs. If this natural principle is followed, there will be no difficulty in maintaining the body.
Maybe continue, Mataji.
Okay. Yes, Prabhuji. According to nature's arrangement, living entities lower on the evolutionary scale do not eat or collect more than necessary. Consequently, in the animal kingdom, there is generally no economic problem or scarcity of necessities. If a bag of rice is placed in a public place, birds will come to eat a few grains and go away. A human being, however, will take away the whole bag. He will eat all his stomach can hold and then try to keep the rest in storage. According to scriptures, This collecting of more than necessary, atyahar, is prohibited. Now the entire world is suffering because of it.
Thank you, Mataji. So here, the first point actually is the main problem is the repetition of birth, old age, disease, and death. So actually, it is applicable to all the living entities, right? So everyone actually who takes birth, they're actually going through these stages. They will become old, they will actually get diseased, and everyone will die as well. So Srila Prabhupada always, actually state this. These are the real, actually, miseries of actually material existence. And we have to find a solution. So in this world, as it says that one has to work for the maintenance of a body and soul, right? So everyone has to do some work. So it is not possible that one can choose not to work. So in Bhagavad Gita, it says that not even actually small amount of time, one cannot give up the work. So in order to maintain the body, everyone has to work, right? So we are all working, and we actually try to actually earn some, money, so we can actually able to buy things that we can actually able to maintain, our body or our family. So this is required, and but here question is being asked how one can perform such work that is favorable for the execution of Krishna consciousness. So everyone require possessions such as food, grain, clothing, money, other necessary things for the maintenance of the body, but one should not collect more than necessary for his actual basic needs. Okay, so here is a point of atyahar now coming in, that one should not collect. So everyone needs, the basic things, right? Everyone needs a food, everyone need a shelter, and everyone need actually in today's world money as well and other things to have a normal life. But as you can see, not everyone is just happy with these actually basic necessities, right? And it is said that actually one should not collect more than necessary. Then what is actually required to sustain. So these are the basic things. And if this principle is followed, Srila Prabhupada is saying there will be no difficulty in maintaining the body. So yes, actually it is very true that the atyahar, so eating more than necessary and collecting more funds than required. So this is actually the first hurdle. So just to maintain the body in a healthy condition, if you follow this principle, if you eat what is only required, then it's very easy to maintain the health in a actually good condition. But in today's world, actually we are not living in actually in a world where there's a scarcity of food. So if you actually go back in 1930s or 50s, there used to be famine. Actually there is not enough food grain, and people actually used to starve and all that. But in today's world, actually, that there is enough food grain, for everyone. But there is actually, there are actually some actually incidents where artificial scarcity is created, out of somebody's greed. So that is not the actually problem of the actually Mother Nature, because as it says that Krishna's world is perfect, is complete in itself. There is all the arrangements are being made for everyone's actually maintenance. So even actually when you think, because we are actually studying these actually instructions, because every one of us want to actually become a devotee, right? And we want to actually serve Krishna. So these instructions are very, very actually important, and unless we follow these actually rules or codes, it is actually extremely difficult to progress on this path. So atyahar, I was meditating on this point, that ahar, the word ahar means actually maybe literal meaning is actually food, but ahar is just not actually referring to the food, but is also referring to the objects of all the senses, right? So yes, the food for the tongue, right? So even the eyes, so the form that you see, that is actually the object of the eyes, So we like to see, various things. We want to go around, sightseeing and all that. We want to enjoy. So this is also actually, it's a sense gratification. So same thing for the nose, we like to smell, right? Even actually when we eat food, actually first thing we do is actually we smell. So even actually in scientifically, by just smelling the food, you actually release various hormones that actually aids in a digestion as well. So this is bit actually, technical side, but actually that sense is also involved there. But actually we can actually use these things, Srila Prabhupada says that actually the living entity, who has a senses, there is some level of gratification is needed. It is not possible that actually the living entity can give up the sense gratification completely. It's not possible. And if somebody does that, I think he will probably leave the body very soon. So gratification is necessary, but actually we only accept what is actually required. So the always, it is famous statement is to keep the body and soul together. So bare necessities of the life, that is what is actually recommended, so it's kind of actually tapasya, so first, as we say, there's all this actually object of the senses, there are senses and they're actually object of the senses. So one has to actually control the senses. And Srila Prabhupada always actually just spoke on this point that as we cannot actually stop, senses artificially from enjoying, so we change the enjoyment, right? So actually we engage them in a Krishna's service. So that is actually recommended for one who want to actually progress on this path of devotional service. So ahar, so atyahar. So just talking about the food, even actually in order to actually do the devotional service, so we do chanting, we do various services, we actually study scripture, we do preaching. So you need actually healthy body, it's very, very imperative. Because even actually I personally experienced myself, when your health is not in good state, it's very hard to actually conduct all these activities. Even chanting, you cannot even focus properly if you're actually not in a good health. And actually, sitting at one place studying and actually doing preaching activities or, doing various services, you definitely need a good health. So keeping the body in a healthy condition is required, and whatever is required in order to actually maintain that in the good condition, then we have to actually take food in ahar. And Srila Prabhupada says the best for the devotees only accept prasad, the actually food grain that is offered to Krishna. So that will actually help one to progress on this path, there is actually reference I would like to share from Bhagavad Gita. So it's a Bhagavad Gita chapter 6, verse 16. Let me share the screen. Nati ashnastastu yogasti na chaikantam anashnataha na chati swapna silasya jagrato naiva cha arjuna. So here actually written that there is no possibility of one being a yogi. O Arjun, if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or do not sleep enough. Okay. So here the regulation of diet and sleep is recommended herein for the yogis. So when we say yogi, so it is applicable to bhakti yogis as well. That too much eating, which is more than required to keep the body and soul, so is not actually recommended. So the first thing is that Srila Prabhupada says that for the actually devotee, the food in a mode of goodness, so that include the grains, vegetable, fruit, milk, that is what is recommended. So you can actually make a nice preparations, offer it to Krishna, and accept as a mercy of the Lord. So that is what actually devotee should do. But when we actually just eat just to satisfy the tongue or fill your tummy, so some people actually want to actually enjoy the animal food, so that involve the meat, whatever the seafood and all that. So that is actually atyahar, that is not required to actually, keep you in a good health. So we only do that just to actually, satisfy our actually the tongue. Tongue want to taste different food, and we actually want to actually, satisfy. So some people actually go kill the animal and eat that. So animal food, Srila Prabhupada says, is a mode of ignorance. So that is not actually required. Even actually, some people who indulge themselves in actually drinking, smoking, so that actually again involve the intoxication, because alcohol is not required to maintain in the good health, right? It's not necessary at all. But as today, if you see in this world, there is actually, if you look around the Western countries or any countries nowadays, no country is spared. Nowadays alcohol is actually sold everywhere, and especially in today's world, even the youngsters, it's very common for them to drink. Especially when we live, actually, if you actually live in Western countries, if you're not drinking, then actually they actually call you the oddball. They think you are something out of ordinary if you're not drinking alcohol. So you stand out. So it is actually quite acceptable that everyone should drink alcohol. So but that is not what is required. So this is definitely atyahar, actually accepting anything, alcohol or any other intoxicants. So that is also atyahar. Atyahar in terms of food, not just actually eating food stuff. So Srila Prabhupada always said that when you are not hungry and if you eat, then that is a poison. Okay, so that is very true, right? Even actually His Holiness Mahavishnu Goswami Maharaj, he also said that actually the salt and sugar, they are the white poisons. So yes, they are when you actually take it more than required, right? So it is well known fact now, actually, even medical science says that you should not eat, the actually salt. So even 5 grams is more than enough for a person for a day to keep your actually, physiological processes in order. But in today's world, especially the fast food and all that, it contains so much amount of sugar and food. If you're actually eating that kind of actually food, then definitely that is atyahar as well, and that will lead to a bad health. Yeah? So as Srila Prabhupada actually always said that if you are actually eating, very simple food, then it is good for you. And Srila Prabhupada says that if you eat the same thing at the same time every day, that will actually help your health to a great deal. So I was actually, when I first time I heard that actually, in one of the actually videos that Amrish Bhu shared, many years ago, that he said that actually if you're eating same thing at the same time, because Srila Prabhupada, I think he used to eat the khichdi, quite often. So, and it is so true, when actually, I try to find out that if you're actually eating, simple food, same time as same time, then actually body is actually used to produce a certain chemical to digest it. So that will also, help. So that is one thing, about the atyahar, that is food. So when you think about the other senses, the similar actually things, even the eyes, when actually eyes actually they enjoy the form, they like to actually see things and all that. So Srila Prabhupada always said that sightseeing, actually Srila Prabhupada never liked it, when you go around and just to see things. So this is again kind of waste of time. This falls in the category of a prajal. Sorry, the prayas, unnecessary endeavor to enjoy your senses. So These are, so you can actually think about every actually sense like that, So even the actually nose, they like to actually smell things, So for a devotee, they should offer flowers to Krishna and they should actually, smell. So this is actually will help with their actually devotional service. But in today's world, actually we use different kind of perfumes and they're actually very expensive perfumes, So one has to actually work very hard and earn more money to actually buy them. So again, you're actually wasting a lot of time, putting unnecessary labor that is not required. So you're actually devoting your time, which is not useful for your devotional progress. So atyahar, so it has a many actually, when you think about different senses, so it will has different meanings. Even actually in the social order, where you actually situated. So if you are a grahastha, there is actually, Srila Prabhupada says that you need to collect some money, right? So you work, you collect some money, keep it some in a bank for emergency, right? That is required. So that is actually recommended for the householder, So actually he need to save for this family. He also need to save because he can serve his guests, when other Vaishnavas come to the home, he can serve them well as well. So he's engaging the money in service of Krishna. But if you are actually brahmachari or if you're a sannyasi, then actually collecting fund is prohibited, is not allowed. So sannyasi cannot collect and keep it in a bank for the emergencies, that is not actually recommended at all. So depending on your situation, so in a grihastha, you are allowed, but actually how much is allowed, that is again question. So you should have enough to maintain, yourself, your family, and what is needed for the family, or even now, because especially we are in this program, our mood is preaching, So even you can collect and you can use that money for your preaching activities, So as long as it is used in Krishna's service, I think, it will not actually hamper your progress in a devotional, if you want to be actually, progress faster on this path. So the Srila Prabhupada actually, he shared, many examples as well. Even actually, he says that not just actually atyahar means actually eating more than necessary. So you cannot even regarding sleep as well, right? If you're actually taking, if you're actually sleeping more than 6 hours, that is also not actually recommended for a devotee, Srila Prabhupada says one should sleep 6 hours and that is enough to maintain your body in a good health. So anything more than that is actually in a mode of ignorance. So, and especially for the bhakti yogis, here, I will read this to you, actually it's very interesting, that even fasting, one should not actually manufacture their own process of fasting. Okay, one should be actually follow the rules and regulation of the scripture. So when we fast, we fast according to the Vedic injunctions. We fast on Ekadashis. We fast on all the actually festivals, right? Gaur Purnima or Janmashtami, Narsingh Chaturdasi. So we are actually fasting as per the Vedic injunctions and also the Ekadashis, every 15 days. So we're fasting, and then actually there are the actual rules and regulations, what you can eat and you cannot eat, all that. So you're actually controlling your senses, but you cannot just fast more than required as well, because that will again hamper your health, So that's why Srila Prabhupada is saying that he does not fast or eat more than is required. He is thus competent to perform the yoga practice. One who eats more than required will dream very much while sleeping. He must consequently sleep more than is required. One should not sleep more than 6 hours daily. One who sleeps more than 6 hours out of 24 hours is certainly influenced by mode of ignorance. A person in a mode of ignorance is lazy and prone to the sleep a great deal. Such person cannot perform yoga, right? So there's another actually side effect, that if you actually eat too much, consequently you will sleep more, If you sleep more, you're going to dream more, and that will again disturb your yogic process. So this is actually, everything is actually connected here. Okay, so that is about the Atyahar actually. Just share. Okay, go back to the purport. So next point here, Srila Prabhupada was saying that according to nature's arrangement, living entities lower on a evolutionary scale do not eat or collect more than necessary. Consequently, in animal kingdom, there is generally no economic problem or scarcity of necessities. If a bag of rice is placed in a public place, bird will come and eat few grains and go away. A human being, however, will take away the whole bag. He will eat all his stomach can hold and then try to keep the rest in storage. According to scriptures, this collecting of more than necessary, atyahar, is prohibited. Now the entire world is suffering because of it. Okay, so Srila Prabhupada actually give very good example here. So the actually living entities on a lower on a evolutionary scale. So the bird, beast, animals. So yeah, you can actually observe as well. As the birds will only come and eat what is required, right? Even if you actually put the whole bag, as Srila Prabhupada says, they do not really collect more than actually what they do not need. But human being has a tendency, because if you think why we actually behave like that, so yes, actually we have the actually tendency to plan, what we need in the future, right? So we have the higher intelligence and we can plan, so we can actually anticipate how much we require in the future. So that is okay, everybody's planning, everybody's earning, they're actually keeping some in bank for the emergencies. But if you're actually collecting when this is not required, so taking the whole bag, the concept here is that actually comes out of a greed, right? So yes, because this is out of actually ignorance as well, or actually having more and more possessions, so the greed, actually love. So this is another actually, the point we will discuss further in the purport. But Srila Prabhupada is saying that actually this is prohibited. It's not actually good for your devotional service. So the question might be asked, so that actually, especially now, because we are all try to follow this instruction, that are we actually, Srila Prabhupada says that if we advise, people not to collect what is not required, only live with bare necessities, people will think that they have been asked to go back to the primitive life, right? It will come further in the point, So atyahar, so there is a fine line, what is atyahar and what is actually, required, or what you can plan for the future as well. So one has to actually understand this point very clearly, So everyone, I know that actually everyone actually working and everyone actually planning for the future and all that. This doesn't mean that actually you give up and you live like a sannyasi, only what is required. Especially because we are the grihasthas, then definitely we are allowed to actually accumulate some amount of money. But actually we should not actually, run behind the money, So the next point, the prayas, because if you try to collect what is more than required, then ultimately you have to put more and more effort, right? So that will consume more of your time. So we will discuss that in next actually the paragraph. But this is also here Srila Prabhupada is saying that this will create actually economic problem. In animal kingdom, the economic problem does not exist. There is no recession. Actually, we do not see these actually problems. In the animal kingdom or any bird or beast, but we do have that problem. And a serious problem, right? So we always have these things like the actually global recession. And again, there is a if you actually following the current news that that we may again go into the recession and the world will go into the recession. So why this is happening? If you look around the world, actually the most of the countries, they have enough money, or food grains or the actually the assets to maintain everyone in actually a good state, right? But there is not equal distribution as well. And again, actually, some actually people are actually, this is applicable to all level, personal level, at the actually, community or national level. The tendency is the same, actually, people are actually collecting, hoarding, keeping that, or actually try to create artificial scarcity so they can actually benefit from that, So this actually, tendency of collecting more than necessary, or the greedy tendency, actually leading everyone into the actually the problem. So the so-called economic problem, and then people lose the job again. All these actually problems start. So if everyone is actually behaving, actually according to these principles, then actually Srila Prabhupada says actually we can able to actually bring the actually peace and prosperity in this world, right? So when we will study the Sri Ishobnishad, so the same point will again come. So we can actually discuss those points where it is actually said that, actually it is talks about the, everyone has given the quota, and actually, we should not actually go outside our quota and try to actually take it from others, So it's a similar tendency, collecting more than that is required. So Atyar is just not actually relating to just food, it's about, we're talking about the actually object of all the senses, all that we do to actually satisfy our senses and try to enjoy. So Krishna has given us a higher intelligence, he has given us senses as well. So it is recommended that if we accept these actually senses and we do the sense gratification in the mood of enjoyment, then we will lose the purpose of this human life, so we fall prey to the actually, we'll get entangled, just try to satisfy our senses. So as we discuss, who's the Mahatma and who's the Duratma, right? So we should be actually more focused on satisfying Krishna, serving him, rather than actually more focusing on satisfying our senses, right? So this is actually bottom line, when we want to progress, yes, we have to keep ourselves in a good health, but we should not lose the focus, The ultimate aim of the life is to actually serve Krishna and do the devotional service. Okay, we still have 10 minutes. I think we will do the next paragraph probably. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I had a
Yes.
question. Is it okay to ask right now, or should we wait till the end of the verse?
You can ask now, probably, Mataji, if it's relevant here. Yeah.
Yes, Prabhuji. So, like we were discussing about eating and how, like you have to eat to maintain your basic level of health, because otherwise it'll be very difficult to carry out your devotional service and everything. And so I've not done my proper research on this as of yet, but there is lately like a lot of propaganda about like how protein is really necessary for just maintaining your basic muscles in your body. Not even if you're like building muscles, just to maintain your muscle mass, you need like equivalent of your body weight in protein. And for a vegetarian diet, it's a very difficult thing to achieve. And I was recently talking to one of my closest friends, and she's a doctor, and we were having this discussion that it becomes, especially for women, becomes really difficult as they grow older. And so for vegetarians, they would have to eat a lot just to make their basic levels of protein. So even like if we like, I was telling her the same arguments that we have paneer and we have dal, and she was telling me that they're not very good sources of protein because they have a lot of other things which harm your body, and you will have to eat them excessively just to meet your basic level of health. Now I don't know how credible she is, but she was telling me all this on from a caring point of view. So what she told me is that you have to have this, otherwise it'll be very difficult for your body to maintain it going forward. So how do we, as like pure vegetarians who cannot compromise on the standard, how is this really required, firstly, to meet our like normal bodily functioning? And secondly, if it is, then how do we as devotees kind of prepare ourselves for it?
Yes, good question, Mataji, and it's a very practical question. I think, yeah, every time we discuss this subject matter, this question comes up. And I myself asked this question, and Amrish Bhu always means this is actually very actually practical to everyone, especially to the Matajis, even my wife actually, when she came to the New Zealand, she has this same thing about actually iron, more than proteins, iron, So they say that actually the vegetarian diet, they do not provide enough iron, right? So it's not entirely true because there are many examples, even my grandfather actually, he was actually always been a vegetarian, he also never ate onion and garlic, but he was actually what do you call pahalwan, when he was young. And we used to eat similar diet, when I was there in India. So he used to break the coconut on his hand, without any help, with his actually fist, until he was actually 70, 75. I have seen with my own eyes, and I did actually, means he never eat meat, he always eat the same, what is actually stated here, Srila Prabhupada, the milk, the vegetables, the grains, all those things. And it used to be a very balanced diet, especially, in India, actually, if you're living, you're actually fortunate, you get all those kind of, food that is properly prepared. In the Western countries here, actually, we get everything here, but not fresh, not all the time is fresh, most of the is the more and more packaging. That actually packaged food is very common. Actually, one of the things that was I actually realized when I came here, that everything is packaged, the teen food and all that. So it is there. But if you actually research, I did actually my own research because I also developed the B12 deficiency, right? I do not have any iron. And I'm also actually go to the gym. I also exercise. My actually gym instructor told me the same thing. But he didn't say that you cannot get protein from the vegetarian sources. Yes, he said eat more cereal, what is called? Actually legumes, more legumes, the dal and the cheese and the paneer, you get enough, but you need to actually exercise. When you're actually taking a lot of paneer, then cheese, then if you have the active lifestyle, then actually you can maintain a good health, But if you have sedentary, actually, lifestyle, then you may actually develop some health issues because of that, the cholesterol and all that. So, and again, Amrish Prabhu also, I remember this actually, he stated that when we had having this discussion, the iron deficiency, So they say that, because people in the West, they eat meat, and they say this is a good source of iron, so on. But they also take actually iron pills. They also develop the iron deficiency. So if you're eating meat on daily basis and if you're still having the deficiencies, then how does that actually equate, So this is actually kind of myth, it's a misguide. Actually, there is I would say they're misguiding, Actually, nowadays it is said that if you're on vegetarian diet, then more likely you will remain healthy. Okay, there is a less probability you will develop the cancers and all that, because the red meat of any animal food has more actually risks than actually it is good for your health. So yes, you will hear this, Mataji, many times, and I do not believe, because we have been, means this is not new to me actually, means my whole life actually, my whole family is actually always been a vegetarian. So there are no issues such that, but individually how your actually body is, maybe different, you tend to have some deficiencies. So that can be actually addressed, and there are also solutions as well if you're actually deficient in certain food, Even the medication, Mataji, I will tell you that when you're deficient in anything, they give the pills, but actually, as a devotee, we should verify if it's coming from the vegetarian source. Okay, there are actually source of B12 vitamin from the vegetarian sources, and there is also animal sources. So we have to also pick and choose what we want to actually take it. So is that, Mataji, means yeah. So if you have any issues, actually further we will again discuss that with Amrish Prabhu at the end. With this, we'll put this question again, and probably, he's more knowledgeable. He can able to actually explain it better. Pradhan Prabhu, you have the question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji, for the answer. And thank you, Divyanshi Mataji, for the very relevant question. Even I had this in mind, like I have switched to 2-3 gyms, so every trainer asked me to, if you're vegetarian, you will not get enough source of protein. But at the end, I think they recommend the whey proteins, like they are out of milk product itself. And like I've seen many people in their old age, also my grandmother, grandfather also, they were in very good health. They were taking vegetarian diet only, but they were in very good health. I think like there are many sources in vegetarian diet also. Like we were watching the lecture of Maharaj, like who's known as Mahavishnu Goswami Maharaj. He recommends that walking is the best thing. Like if we just walk daily, like he talks about Vraj, I think Vraj means to walk, like everyone in Vrindavan walks. So he says that walking is like the best thing we can do. So I think I think I agree with your point that you mentioned. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. Yes. So yeah, we will actually discuss this in detail. I think we got only 2 minutes left now, so we'll conclude the session today, and we'll continue the discussion. So if you have the questions, please actually post them in an intermediate forum. So I will actually keep I will compile them all together, and then at the end of this actually when we conclude this verse, then we'll have a session where actually Amrish will actually answer all those questions, and we can have that discussion again. Okay. Okay. Thank you, devotees, and thank you, Amrish for this opportunity. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Sanjay, Shital Prabhu, and wonderful devotees. So we will start in 2-3 minutes now. Yeah, we'll stop the live stream now. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.